So this video is going to be about analyzing graphs of functions. You can see I have a graph and a bunch of questions, so we're just going to go through each one of those questions individually. You're welcome to pause the video and try as many as you can on your own. So for number 1, I asked you to find f of 0, f of 2, and f of 4. So f of 0, we're basically looking to see what the y value is when x equals 0. So if you look at the graph, when x is 0, we're going to be at that point right here. That actually is going to be 3. You do the same thing for f of 2. I didn't give you a point down there, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You just have to draw the point yourself. It looks to me like it's about -2. F of 4, that one's a weird one. It actually has an open circle, so there is actually no value at that point. You can show the empty set, you can write does not exist, you can write undefined. Any of these is okay. Sorry, that's really messy. So finding the domain, what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can find all possible x values. The way that we find a domain from a graph like this is we're going to go from the leftmost to the rightmost. So make sure, first of all, that your function is continuous, that there's no breaks in the middle of it. As long as there are no open circles or anything like that, or asymptotes, you're going to be fine to go from the leftmost value to the rightmost value. So my leftmost point is over here, starting at -1. That one we do include -1 in our domain because it's an open circle. So I'm going to start with -1 like that. You'll notice I put a bracket there to show that -1 is included. My rightmost value is over here at 4. Unfortunately, there is an open circle, so I'm going to actually write that as a bracket. This is interval notation for those of you that don't remember. It's a great way to write these. It's a short way to write them, which is really nice. Now, if we write it using the notation that we've been using in class, that's also fine. It's going to be written like this. So it's going to be the values of x such that x is between -1 and +4. So this is the other way to write it. These are the same exact meaning, just a different notation. So to find our range, I'm going to show it in green. So we're going to look at our y values. To find your range, you're going to go from the bottom to the top. So go from your lowermost value to your highest value. So your bottommost to your topmost values. So the bottom actually occurs here at -2. You can draw that point if it wasn't, I had just drawn that in. But we do actually touch the graph at -2. The other thing is right here, even though we have an open circle at the 4, our highest value actually is still 3 because we have that point at 0, 3. So then my uppermost value is 3. So my range is going to go from -2 to 3. You can write it like this in interval notation, or you can use the other notation that we're using. It's going to be all values of x such that x is between -2 and +3. Okay, next question, find the intercepts. This one hopefully isn't too tough for you. They're actually all listed on the graph. Don't forget, by the way, to include both y and x intercepts. So I have x-intercepts and y-intercepts. My first x-intercept is at -1, 0. I have a y-intercept at 0, 3. And then I have 2 more x-intercepts at 1, 0 and 3, 0. All right, next question is a little bit tougher. How many times does a line y equals 2 intersect the graph of f of x? That should have a question mark, by the way. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw the line y equals 2. I'll draw it here in yellow. And you'll see that it intersects at 1, 2, 3 places. That's all you're doing for that one. The next one, for what values of x is f of x greater than 0? This one is a little bit more challenging. I'm going to draw it on the graph. We'll do that in red. So you'll notice that our starting value for when our f of x or our y is greater than 0 is at -1. We go all the way from -1 to +1. All of that, the y values are greater than 0. It also happens from 3 to 4. You'll notice I drew it on the graph in red. So we're going to go ahead, write that in interval notation, but you can also write it in using inequalities. So from -1 to 1, I want to point out that I used a parenthesis, not a bracket, because at -1, I'm actually equal to 0. And I'm not looking for when f of x is greater than or equal to 0. I'm looking for when f of x is greater than 0. So the first interval is from -1 to 1. The next thing I'm going to do is it's going to go from 3 to 4. By the way, that little u there represents the union. You can just think of it basically as an or. So it's going to be from -1 to 1 or 3 to 4. You can also rewrite this in inequality form. I'll let you know what notation I want you to use, and if I don't specify, you can just use either one. Most people I found feel more comfortable with the inequality, but you can do it pretty much either way. I'm totally fine with that. So the last question I asked you, for what values of f is f of x equal to -1? For this one, I'm actually going to do it in a way that's really similar to what I did for number 5. Keep in mind that f of x equals -1 is the same as y equals -1. So I'm just going to look and see, when is y equal to -1? This wasn't a perfect line. I'll draw another one. So it happens around here and around here. So I'm going to say that that happens when x equals, it looks to me like it's about 1.1, 1.2. The next one, I'm going to say maybe like 2.6-ish. You can just estimate these. Don't freak out about like not knowing the exact value. An estimate for this is just fine.